Hi, everyone. Here, Leonardo Gava. I'm from Climate Bonds Initiative. I'm Senior Brazil Agriculture Transition Manager for Climate Bonds. So I'm responsible for the Agri-Food Transition Program in Brazil. I'm here today with Diego Hotter, CEO from ucrop.it. Diego, please go ahead if you want to present yourself.
Hi, Leonardo. It's great having you here and the opportunity to discuss together about the sustainable finance opportunity. So, I am the co-founder and CEO of ucrop.it. We are a MRB platform for getting farmers and companies to agree, trace, and verify sustainable crop stories for making sustainable finance happen at a global scale, right?
Perfect. Thank you, Diego. So the idea here today, I'm going to present you guys a bit about climate bonds and how we are leveraging this sustainable finance market for agriculture, and then going to introduce like an issue we have when it comes to information, to data. And then Diego is going to follow up with his presentation, and we are going to have a short discussion on the topic. So today we are going to talk a bit about Climate Bonds Initiative and how we are working to leverage this market, the sustainable finance market for the agriculture sector. I'm going to bring you guys a little bit of data as well to put you in context with what is happening at a global scale when it comes to sustainable finance. Okay. So just an introduction about climate bonds. I don't know if all of you have ever heard about climate bonds, but the Climate Bonds Initiative is an international organization with the goal of mobilizing capital for climate action. And we do that basically by promoting labeled financial instruments such as green bonds. And basically, we achieve our goals by engaging in three different work streams. So we have a huge work stream on market education. So we bring stakeholders what sustainable finance is, how to access, what are the benefits, and so on. We're going to talk about a little bit about that further down the presentation. We also have a very important work stream on market in track of all the issuances that have come to market with a label being green, sustainable, social. We are going to talk a bit about the labels, transition, sustainability linked. And based on this database, we publish reports and market analysis so we can bring to stakeholders the right data to justify why to engage with this market. And our core business is certification. So as of today, we are able to certify green financial instruments such as green bonds and green loans, assets, transition instruments such as transition bonds, sustainability linked bonds, and transition strategies from companies. So we are going to talk a little bit about this. But first, it's very important to talk about the labels. So what a green bond means, what a social bond means, or sustainability bond means. So first, when sustainable finance became like a market and started to grow early 2008, the first label to come to market was the green label. The green label actually means that the projects, assets, and activities that are being funded by that financial instrument, a bond or a loan, they have an environmental benefit, specifically related to the reduction of greenhouse gases. Okay. When it comes to the social bond, so a little bit after the green bond was launched in the market, some issuances came to the market with a different label, social, which means the same, but the proceeds they are being directed to fund projects, assets, and activities with a social benefit, right? Little after, a new label came to market called sustainability. It's basically the same thing. It just links green and social. So under a sustainability labeled bond, the projects, the assets, the activities that are being funded, they have both environmental and social benefits, right? When it comes to the market, this is the up-to-date data we have of cumulative issuances. Green dominates the market, right? So followed by sustainability and social. Over the past 2 years, two new labels came to the market, labels that we call transition finance, right? So first, the transition bond. The transition bonds works the same way as the green social sustainability. So it's a bond for which the proceeds are going to fund projects, assets, and activities that will help sectors to align to Paris Agreement targets. So basically, it's a sector that is not yet green, but it needs funding to align to what green means, which is like align to Paris Agreement targets, and also the sustainability linked label. It could be a sustainability linked bond, an SOB, like you see on this graph here, or it could be a sustainability linked loan. Basically, for this bond, it works a little bit different, right? So the proceeds raised by this kind of instruments, they may be spent for general purpose, so maybe OPEX, something like this. But the issuer complies in meeting some sort of KPIs by the maturity date of this bond, let's say in reduction of greenhouse gases or any other environmental or social goal as well. If the issuer is successful in meeting those targets, the interest rates, they remain the same or there's a step down. If the issuer is not successful in meeting those targets, there's a step up on their interest rate. So there's some sort of incentive in meeting sustainability targets. Okay. So when it comes to the Climate Bonds Initiative, we are able to certify the green label, okay, either for financial instruments or assets, and we are able to certify the transition label and the sustainability linked label. Okay. So when it comes to the market of labeled instruments over time, we see there's a rise in issuances of all types of labels. The green label still dominates the market. You can see in 2022 the market went down a bit, but not just the labeled market. All bond market went down because of macroeconomic issues, war, inflation, interest rates, and so on. As of 2023, we see this market is actually going up again. Okay, we still don't have data to show you in 2023, but our expectations are that the market is going to recover from this little fall in 2020. So when it comes to certification, the Climate Bonds Initiative, we have what we call a taxonomy, which is a guide that identifies sectors and subsectors that are important to the transition of the global economy to the Paris Agreement targets. And as you guys can see, we have one specific section of this taxonomy dedicated to land use. And when it comes to land use, we are talking about agriculture, forestry, and within agriculture, crop production and livestock production, right? So as of today, we have a criteria for agriculture, right? This criteria, the way it is presented today, it can be used to certify financial instruments and assets with the green label, with the goal of funding low emission agriculture and an agriculture that is adapted and resilient to climate change, and thus no harm to the climatic resilience of the systems in which it is incorporated. And we are right now updating this criteria to insert what we call transition pathways. So we are going to be able to certify transition bonds, sustainability linked bonds, and sustainability linked loans in the agriculture sector. We hope as soon as March 2024. Okay. Another important topic here. So you can see the goal of the criteria is to fund agriculture that's low emission agriculture and adapted and resilient to climate change, right? So we have basically two components when we are talking about this criteria. We have a component dedicated to mitigation of greenhouse gases, right? So we have to verify things like no deforestation, no clearing of lands, if the farmer is actually engaged with the best low carbon agricultural practices such as no-till, crop rotation, waste management, and so on. And also we have to verify aspects if that operation is adapted and resilient to climate change, right? So basically right now what we have in scope are crops, perennial and non-perennial crops. So we do not specify crops for certification. It may be whatever crop you are using right now. And we also certify livestock production and, of course, mixed farming. So crops, livestock, integration with forestry, and so on. And as I said, right now, we are incorporating these transition pathways within our criteria. Because one thing is to certify and to provide green capital for farmers, growers, and companies that are in line with this transition to 1.5 degrees, which is the Paris Agreement target. The other thing is farmers, growers, and companies that are not yet aligned, but those companies and farmers that also need money to some way get in track with this transition process. So this is why we are updating the criteria right now to incorporate SOBs, transition bonds, and corporate strategies. And the goal is to transition the whole system from what we see today as the majority of the system to something that is sustainable, but also fair. When we talk about transition has to be fair, right? So this is a very important topic for us. And also our goal is for these farmers and growers to capitalize on the benefits of sustainable finance as well. To this point, we cannot say in Latin America that we have like huge monetary benefits for farmers engaging in the sustainable finance market. But we can say that if you are certified under one of those schemes, if you are able to access sustainable finance through green transition, sustainability linked instruments, you for sure are attracting different kind of investors that understand your business, investors that understand the better terms, the better liquidity for you. So you are bringing more benefits into your operation, right? So in a nutshell, this is what I want to present to you guys about Climate Bonds Initiative today. And I pass over to my friend Diego, who is going to present a bit about ucrop.it and we'll about this. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks, Leonardo, about that. And in ucrop.it, we are in the business of verifying sustainable agriculture at a global scale. And of course, sustainable finance in agriculture is part of that. So we can make it simple, scalable, and accurate. So to fulfill criteria, as for example, the ones Leonardo was referring to. Just a bit about ourselves, ucrop.it. As said, we are a solution that drives sustainability in agriculture forward, connecting farmers with companies in the agriculture value chain. And this could be companies, as you can see on the right side of the screen, as downstream CPG companies or traders trying to source sustainable agriculture products from their growers in a way that can verify these criteria, or companies that are in the upstream segment of the value chain and looking forward to bringing more environmentally positive products into the growers' farms and being able to trace the environmental impact of those products at farm level, or companies that are financial institutions that are looking to finance growers on differentiated terms because basically of their compliance to specific criteria as the ones that the Climate Bond Initiative is suggesting for the market. And in a way that these criteria can be agreed, and they can be between farmers and companies, and they can be traced, achieved, and verified for actually making it happen on a real basis. So just for a bit of our metrics, we operate in 9 countries, all the way from the United States, Canada, Mexico, Latin American South, and more recently into Australia. Just in 2020, we traced more than 1.2 million hectares of climate-smart crops. Those are crops that are verified for sustainable attributes and metrics, and we are funneling 3.5 million hectares during 2023 as we speak. We already have 740 growers in our platform, celebrating more than 1,000 traceability agreements with companies to fulfill this data collection on sustainable metrics. As a company, we are a 60 full-time employees organization. My fellow co-founders, Marco Bota, Matthias O'Keefe, COO and CTO, they come both from As myself from the agriculture industry, Marcos used to work in Black River, the rural investment unit of Cargill, and Matias comes from 20 years experience as a tech entrepreneur in building digital products for the market, with 5 years expertise in blockchain. Myself, I come from more than a decade in bringing biotechnologies into Latin American South. I was a international manager for Monsanto, and we are supported by relevant venture capital firms from the United States, Europe, and Latin America. And the problem, of course, is that in fulfilling specific farm level sustainability criteria, agriculture can be a black box. But agriculture today represents 1/4 of greenhouse gases emissions. So we need to shift from a conventional agriculture model, right, worldwide to a more environmentally positive one, to one that we can verify crops for their climate smart attributes. Because we cannot measure, right, we cannot reward it, and we cannot control it. So that's why we build crops, sustainable crop stories that farmers and companies can share from making these climate smart attributes happen. And basically, a crop story is a blockchain recorded document that it's verified for farmers that are legally entitled to exploit that land. This is important, and accounts for all the key crop metrics as for what crop the farmer is planting and managing, and where in a geolocalized way those crops are being managed in terms of their field boundaries, and of course what are the sustainability KPIs that are being achieved in the process. We measure sustainable landscapes, crop protection, products, environmental impacts, the stewardship in responsible use of fertilizers, carbon footprints, water efficiencies in crops, and biodiversity indexes as well. And in doing so, of course, we pursue an evidence-based approach out of which we combine different electronic data sets that we extrapolate from satellite images using machine learning algorithms so to detect crops, crop rotations, and other crop management practices that drive sustainability forward. And we also use other oracles from machinery and farmers' ERPs to support the crop practices that the farmers are looking to foster for impacting these metrics in a positive way. And the crop stories are governed by a digital agreement. Basically, a digital agreement, it's an electronic document that farmers adhere to for providing a specific company with permission rights on the data being collected, the purpose, and the shareability of this data to fulfill these verified crop stories. And this is very relevant because in matching the climate bonds agricultural criteria, a specific company will look for specific data to comply to. And farmers in the data collection of the data and us in the verification of that data, through the digital agreements, we solve the problem of having this data in compliance with the privacy laws in making this data available through the value chain, from the farmer to the company that ultimately brings it forward to their products and services or brands. Ultimately, supporting a robust traceability, right, in the sustainability stewardship from the farm to the product brand impact. And our product basically, once we verify that the farmer is legally entitled to exploit that land, we enable the farmers' field boundaries to be screened through a sustainable landscape algorithm that will account on how much overlapping that farm has at each field plot granular level for accounting specific soil layers such as deforestation, wetland impacts, native forest overlapping, endangered species, and other relevant soil layers that for sustainability standards such as 2PSBS in Europe or ICC are important to match in order to, for example, export these grains with sustainable claims to the European Union region. But this is important because sustainable land use, as Leonardo explained, that is one of the criteria that the Climate Bonds Initiative is pursuing to verify. When it comes to deforestation, it's ultimately scaling worldwide, from the Europe to Brazil and the United States more recently. So sustainable land use is one of the algorithms that we verified for farmers and companies that engage into the crop stories. And then when it goes into the crop practices that companies and farmers are tracing to account for the impact in terms of carbon footprints or balances, water efficiencies, footprints, social metrics, as for fair labor at the field levels, or sustainable landscape or biodiversity indexes. The crop stories is a tool that enables farmers and companies to trace this while endorsing the evidence that support these claims from the farmer that actually produces. We at ucrop.it help the farmer digitize their crop stories in order to achieve this evidence-based approach and fulfill these objectives. And once this evidence has been verified and the farmers endorse the crop story, it gets blockchain recorded, creating immutability so that farmers nor the companies can manipulate the information as it is being shared, and the information can fly in a way that feeds automatically BI dashboards or QR codes to showcase that information forward into the brand or into the products these companies are looking to impact with this information. So basically, our customers are the corporates seeking to engage with our farmers' fee users in order to agree on specific protocols, digital binding ones, that will produce and fulfill crop stories for these specific objectives. In exchange, these companies have the opportunity to reward these farmers with monetary incentives or commercial rewards as for sharing this information for these companies to bring it forward to brand products or processes as they comply with their Scope 3 sustainability objectives. And basically, the deliveries that we produce is a fully digital and assisted experience both for farmers to produce their crop stories, right from the sustainable use of land to the crop management practices and impact, as well as for our corporate customers in how to engage that and bring it forward into their brand products and processes. All this data is farmers endorsed and has the governance for the companies to use it under the GDPR privacy laws and frameworks, so they can bring that information under the Global Protection Data Act of the within the European Union regulatory framework. It's all evidence-based, and pretty much all the information is structured in an orderly manner, is showcased through interactive dashboards and QR codes for making sense of the information at a very friendly narrative for even showcasing that to an end consumer at a product level on the shelf of the supermarket. So that the company that is engaging with that growers can make robust sustainable claims on as far of where those crops has been produced out of a sustainable origin in compliance with non-deforestation criteria, for example, where those crops have been produced in a way that they have been taking care of the environmental impact of crop protection or fertilizer products being applied at farm level. What are the carbon footprints or carbon emissions that resulted out of those crops, how we can steer those carbon emissions into a clear sustainable reduction path, what is the water efficiency of that crop in terms of water stewardship, and how overall the company and the farmers they engage with are complying with better governance in securing Scope 3 objectives across the value chain. And we are a company that's growing pretty fast. We started up in 2020. That was our MVP year in Argentina, and basically covering the traceability of input products at the farm level. Then we have scaled to more than 1 million hectares and covering other product market fits such as sustainable grain sourcing, and now more recently the sustainable verification of finance and carbon integrity, for which this webinar is mostly about. And we're looking forward to nowadays scaling in North America and Latin South where we are present, but we already have some pilots in Asia and Australia, and looking forward to scaling in Europe as well. So we think that overall, there is a few tools as efficient and effective to driving agriculture forward at farm level as climate financing or sustainable finance is. And we think that the climate bond initiative is setting a great framework worldwide to make this happen so that MRV solutions as ucrop.it can verify that on a real basis at farm level and enable farmers and companies to benefit from differentiating themselves in terms of how to drive agriculture forward from the farm to the fork, and in doing so, target a more resilient, more climate awareness award investor in order to tap upon a greater opportunity, liquidity opportunity in driving these metrics forwards in the regions and across the value chains, which I think is today one of the main goals of the companies and the farmers worldwide.
Thank you,
Thank
Diego.
you.
So I propose that in order to kick off this conversation, this discussion, I mean, we need to understand a bit. I mean, how can you label a bond, and why data is such an important part of the process and an important bottleneck right now for agriculture. So basically, when you are to label a bond, if you are an issuer, a company, a farmer, whatever, you have four different ways to do so. The first one is what we call, I mean, you self-declare that the bond is green. When sustainable finance became a thing in 2008, 2009, so most of the issuances were self-declared because, I mean, there were no frameworks, no proxies to follow. So a company or a farmer, not a farmer back then, but a company would say, okay, this bond is green, so okay, it's green. But with time, frameworks were created, proxies were developed. So now we have guidelines to follow. And the market, when I say the market, the investors, they don't accept self-declarations anymore. So basically, what you can do, you can use a rating. I mean, there are many commercial ratings where there, or you can use a second-party opinion. Second-party opinion, basically, a issuer is going to hire a company that's going to provide an opinion about that issuance based on their own framework. So let's say they're going to use some framework they created to assess that issuance and bring to the market their opinion, whether it's green, social, sustainability, or not. And you have certification, which is, I would say, the strongest way to label a bond. Globally, Climate Bonds Initiative is the only company certifying green bonds. So the certification process works like a third-party opinion. So you have the issuer, you have a verifier that's approved by CBI, by Climate Bonds. This verifier is going to assess that issuance based on Climate Bonds criteria, and is going to provide Climate Bonds for the report that's going to be assessed by Climate Bonds, and then the label comes to market. So both for ratings, SPOs, or certification, we need a lot of information. And our main challenge, specifically in South America, how to gather all this information. For verifiers, it's really tricky because it enhances a lot the cost of certification of second-party opinions, because the verifier has to go to the farm to gather all the information by himself. Farmers are not the best people to keep track of things most of the times. So, I mean, you have to dig deep in order to find a lot of things. So this is why I think, I mean, we need this kind of framework platform that provides this kind of information to verifiers so they can have the answers faster to comply against the criteria. I don't know, Diego, if you think the same way.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. I think that nowadays it is very important that claims can be traced back to whom, how, where, and when in a robust manner, and self-declarations or strong declarations will not get you out of the woods while doing that, right? You need to somewhat follow an evidence-based approach that has the grower at the center of it, with the correct governance and sustainability stewardship that you can basically bring forward through from the farm to the fork in order to make sure that your claims are real. And I think that financial institutions nowadays are trying to understand how to do this. And I think that in our partnership, we have a great platform to leverage on that opportunity, because we basically Climate initiative is basically bringing the framework on how to do that, and we are basically bringing the remote certainty that that has been achieved, so that bonds can be floated and farmers and companies can be financed out of this specific verified execution. And in doing so, they both companies and farmers engaged in this effort can tap on more resilient, climate smart, aware markets full with investors eager to finance these, but possibly on differentiated terms now and in the future. We see this trend, right, increasing, in which companies need to fulfill specific objectives by becoming zero neutral by 2030 and fostering a more environmental agriculture overall. And if you think about it, in order to make those metrics happen, farmers need incentives and companies need a reason why to do it. And I think that sustainable finance plays a big role, probably the largest role in making this happen, right? Because they can provide these incentives and they can align investors and large pool of capital towards verifying the correct things from farm to fork, so that we can decarbonize the overall agriculture industry worldwide. And in doing so, we can shift to a more environmental agriculture overall that do not care only as and do not look at only at carbon, but also look at biodiversity protection and making what is right for the environment, for environmental equilibrium to happen, right?
Yeah, no, Diego, I completely agree. And you touched upon a very important issue, which is benefits, right? So I usually say that when a farmer is engaging in sustainable agriculture, I mean, he's going to face two main risks. The first risk is what I call transition risk. So, I mean, for some farmers, transitioning to more sustainable practices, I'm not saying that they are not, I mean, to more sustainable practices, uh, it means a complete shift from what he's doing right now as a business to what he must do in order to achieve those targets. So there is a risk. It's a business like any other, right? So you are changing everything like from day to night, and you need to address those risks, and benefits are essential. But at the same time, you have the risk of not transitioning, because if you don't, you are going to have climate issues in the future. So you need to do it, but you need to do it in a way that is fair, that can be done also financially. So completely agree. That's where sustainable finance comes into play, and this is the kind of ecosystem we have to create with investors, with farmers, financial institutions, co-ops. Completely agree. And another point that I think you precisely raised is when you talk about the MRV system, we're not just talking about something that is going to assure the farmer is doing the right thing right now. I mean, we need this process to be ongoing, because when we are talking about sustainable finance or any other kind of certification for sustainable agriculture, it doesn't mean just what we are doing right now. You have to assure that you keep doing the same thing over time. So, for example, if a farmer is granted certification under the climate bonds standards for a green bond or a green asset or something, there's what we call a post-issuance certification as well. So you need to prove that actually you are using that money, that all the proceeds of the financial instrument, to what you said you were going to do it. So right, you need to prove it. So you need to find ways to prove it, and to prove it fast and precisely. So a very good point. And I don't know, you agree? This is
Yeah, totally. I want to add that efficiency is also a great deal for many of the companies nowadays that are looking at achieving these goals. And in many cases, we were asked the key question: who pays for this, right? The market is overall concerned about this. But when, for example, in the case of the GPGs, you get to analyze the cost contribution of tracing that many amounts, that many hectares, that million hectares in the input output relation of those crops getting into elaborated products at consumer level, then per unit, right, of a baked good or another food-based product or wood-based product or fiber-based product that ends at the consumer hands, you get a cost contribution per unit that is way into the right side of the decimals, right? It's like getting right into 0.00008 cents on a dollar of cost contribution. So basically, it's pretty much inelastic. It pays by itself. So the being that efficient, the great opportunity is to roll it over and scale it through. And in doing that, financing is a major tool for that to happen, because CBGs and other companies in the upstream and in the finance space are already doing their efforts, but all are wondering who's gonna pay for that. Well, I think that finance, sustainable finance, can be a great catalyst for actually solving that equation, being that as we are already experiencing it, it is very efficient to escalate when it comes from the farm to the fork, right, or from the farm to the end consumer in cost contribution units. So I
No,
think that, yeah.
I completely agree. I completely agree. This question, I mean, is the main question: who's going to pay for this? But I mean, we need to keep an eye on something. I mean, you mentioned European legislation during your presentation because this is really important. Uh, you know that, I mean, I'm based in Brazil. As a Brazilian, we know that the European market is important for Brazilian agriculture, but it's not the most important. I mean, Asian market right now, China is the major importer for Brazilian goods. But at first, most farmers they would look at certification and they would expect some sort of benefits coming from certification. I mean, this is normal, not just for sustainable finance, for all other kind of certification. But at some point, and watching the market, watching this movement from Europe, because Europe, you know, they have a lot of soft skills. So, I mean, what they're doing is going to influence other markets as well. Certification is going to become the bare minimum to access those markets. So, I mean, if you don't make sure that you are funding your business with sustainable money, if you are producing sustainable whatever, coffee, soy, maize, cotton, you are not going to access those markets because that's the bare minimum. They're not going to buy from you if you don't have it. And I mean, in Brazil, we have seen this movement for coffee production, for example. In the past, coffee farmers would engage with certifications, many of them, in order to access premiums, like for special coffees and so on, sustainable coffees. Right now, most of them don't have access to external market if they don't have the certification. It's not about the premium anymore.
Right.
It's about the market. I mean, I have this perception that the market is moving and is moving fast towards this direction.
But we are already seeing it with the European Union banning any deforested grain or grain product coming into the European market as soon as from 2025 onwards, right? And that is a major shift because they're making this instrumental to their imports. And I think that now we are eyewitnessing that what starts with sustainable use of land will greatly and rather sooner than later shift into overall CO2 footprints being traced from seed to harvest, on top of that sustainable land requirement as of today. So yes, I wouldn't be that concerned with these teams from the European Union region, because overall, although the European Union region is the more advanced in that, we are seeing the United States already adopting those sort of frameworks with the Inflation Reduction Act law that has been passed. And overall, the world is taking notice. Companies, Fortune 500 companies, are taking notice and committing themselves to a more environmental positive agriculture. So I think that at the end of the day, this kind of it's going down, and it's breaking down into what the private sector is doing to cope with these regulatory frameworks that are turning more and more towards what you said, towards becoming more rigid in how agricultural products are being traded for their sustainability verified metrics. And I think that eventually other Asian markets will cope with this, because think about this. There is not that much time. 2030, right? It's run up, just turning the corner, right? It's not much time in order to make this happen. So most likely we will see that for in the next 5 years there will be no crop on the surface of the planet, or no forestry asset that has not been verified for climate smart metrics. And that again, this will foster a great sustainable finance market to flourish and help making these goals a reality. I think that is coming by the day.
No, exactly. I mean, the global policy frameworks, they're being in a good way contaminated by this influence, right? So I mean, as you said, the inflation bill in the U.S. I mean, it's basically a climate change bill. You see,
Indeed, yeah, it
yeah,
is. It's more a climate-based law than inflation reduction one, right? It's
yeah,
like
exactly. No, and I mean, we're going to start to see this in China very soon, and this is going to shift a lot of the market in South America. And
so. I think that um, in doing so, we will see some spreads coming along in the cost of capitals of companies that are being financed because they are committing to achieving scope three sustainable objectives with the value chain, to basically verifying scope one, two, and three, and making their overall farming activities sustainable than the ones that are not, right? And one thing I think that it's very important to that point when it comes to sustainable finance is that carbon offsets, that has been the main theme for the last years, will continue being there, but we will be looking more into the inset side of how supply chains commit from farm to fork towards CO2 footprint reductions, toward fostering water efficiencies, toward protecting biodiversity areas overall, rather than with a sole look at carbon, right? Like the carbon funnel, as someone has been called. And I think that to that end, we will see sustainable finance grow far larger in insets across the supply chain rather than in offsets first, I think, my opinion. And then it will, of course, push the overall carbon markets upwards. So I think that we are in a very exciting time at that, just at the moment of the hockey stick, where this is gonna flourish. And that's why I'm so positive on climate finance being one of the largest solutions towards making ends meet in terms of abating the climate negative effects of this climate crisis that we're living.
yeah, no, I completely agree. And I mean, this is very important how we are going beyond carbon. I mean, this is a very important like comment. As I mentioned, we are building up and updating our current agricultural criteria the way it is today. And you guys are part of the industry working group in that one, helping us a lot.
Father of all sustainable finance, I think, initiatives nowadays in the short period of time, and then we will see climate assets such as carbon continually building and scaling on top of this, right? Because basically there's a commitment from the private sector and from the public sector nowadays of making this happen, right, on a common basis, and I think that that is very positive.
So yeah, sure, I completely agree. So I think to summarize all this
Yeah.
discussion, I think okay, we have sustainable finance. Sustainable finance is going to play a major role in funding this transition, in reducing these risks, right? And well, in order to sustainable finance to be implemented, we need to make sure that all the proceeds, the money, are going to sustainable uses, right? So this is why we need this sort of technology, this sort of information, this sort of platform, because we are only going to be able to scale up this environment if we have this kind of tool. Diego, do you have any final remarks on
Yeah,
this?
just building on your last comment, what a major opportunity for fintechs and financial institutions that are thinking on how can I tap on large investors pool of money that will comply with a specific criteria such as the climate bond initiative one, and make it happen through a robust verification MRV such as ucrop.it, so that the reporting on a with additionality and with the with the commitment over time can be as sound as for a green bond to complete tenor and finance those companies and farmers on differentiated schemes. And hopefully we'll see that happening rather soon. And I think that the world is getting there. So I'm totally excited, and it's a great time to be leading and spearheading this effort with you guys. So I'm more than thrilled to see how we will scale operations together for the benefit of farmers and companies worldwide in making this happen across the geographies that we operate.
Sure. I mean, we are very excited as well. We've been having challenges around data information for quite some time when it comes to agriculture. And right now we have this big program that is scaling up, that is building up on the criteria we had in the past. We are introducing these transition pathways into the criteria. So there's lots of ground for us to explore. And yeah, as you said, a great opportunity. So thank you so much, Diego. This has been an awesome discussion. It's a pleasure to have you all here. And for you guys listening to us, follow us on social media. We have a lot of progress to report over the next couple of months, a lot of new things coming up. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, please feel free to post them on the Q&A, and we are more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Leonardo. And let's make agriculture financing, right, on a verified positive way for sustainability to happen at global scale, right? And let's continue the conversation. Thank you
Sure.
all.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.